Hello and welcome to The Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, your daily guide to decoding current affairs the smart way for UPSC. As we step into this festive weekend, here's wishing you all a very happy Dhanteras and a joyous Diwali ahead. May this season light up your preparation with clarity, focus and confidence. Now, let's dive into today's analysis articles for 18th October 2025. We have two powerful mains focused discussions. First, on the rising carbon dioxide levels, exploring what's behind this surge, its global climate impact, and India's policy response. And second, on the Sri Lankan Prime Minister's visit to India, a key move in for regional diplomacy and India's Indo-Pacific strategy. In our Prelims 2026 Simplified section, we covered the Supreme Court's ruling on digital arrests, a rotavirus vaccine study, step towards equal opportunities for transgenders, and India's emerging Agentic AI opportunity. We also take a glance at places in news, Venezuela, the Egyptian Suez Canal economic zone, and the Bering Strait. So let's begin. Hi guys, I hope you all are doing well. I hope your preparation is going fine. Welcome back again to another episode of The Analyst. I would also like to wish you all a very happy Dhanteras and a very happy and joyous Diwali to you, your friends, your families, to everyone. So I hope you celebrate the season and also prepare a little bit because the exam is also approaching. But yeah, take the time to relax and enjoy. And also, we have to be mindful of the environment, guys. So do not burst a lot of crackers. Keep in mind the environmental obligations, as all of you are future bureaucrats. I hope that all of you would also handle the situation very responsibly. Coming back to the very first article, which is actually related to the environment. Now, there is a recent WMO report, which is the World Meteorological Organization report, which time to time publishes various important data and analysis with reference to the climate change that is taking place in all of the world. So here, this particular report, which goes by the name of World Data Center for Greenhouse Gases, WMO 2024, has quoted the alarming rise of the carbon dioxide levels around the world. And here, this is extremely crucial for your prelims and mains examination due to the number of PYQs which have come from these topics. Now, all of you, I would request all of you, after the session today, please do go through your PYQs, scourging for the various questions which have come from this topic. I have tried to place some PYQs here, the answer of which also you have to let me in the comments. But here, I would suggest you that since this is a very broad topic with questions coming from variety of concepts within it, you must be very mindful of the PYQs right now, since prelims is almost around 6 months away. And this is the perfect time right now to get hold of the PYQs just before you start your mock tests. That is the practice test that you do before your prelims examination. But before that, guys, please, I'm repeating again, to go through the PYQs again. Now, when we look at the data here, according to the WMO, the carbon dioxide levels have been increasing ever since the 1980s decade. If you look into the 2025 levels, it has been the highest level that was touched in 2024. That is, the amount of carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere has increased to the maximum amount of historical level. Now let us understand why this is a very important thing to consider, because we know that CO2 is a greenhouse gas, which essentially means that CO2 has the innate potential in itself to trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere. And in that capacity, the CO2 which is accumulated in the entire atmosphere above us is not letting the heat escape from the Earth's surface. And this is trapping the heat within it, which is actually the main phenomena of greenhouse gas effect. So along with carbon dioxide, we have various other gases also that we will be seeing right now, which are capable of causing this greenhouse gas effect. And the concentration of the same of carbon dioxide and those gases are increasing over a period of time. And we have to understand the year-to-year growth, that is from 2023 to 2024 rise in the CO2 concentration parts per million has been around 3.5, which is 45% higher than the decadal average, right? And when we also consider that greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide is a long-term prevalent gas in the atmosphere. That means that if we concentrate the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it can remain for almost around 100 years. So that means that it is extremely also difficult to get rid of the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. So this is the magnitude that we have to understand. Also, according to IPCC report, 2024 has been the year where we have seen the global rise in temperature of around 1.55 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level. Now, guys, in newspaper and also in your books, from time to time, you will be hearing this term, pre-industrial level. What do we mean by that? We mean by a particular time period in history that is almost before the industrial revolution that took place in around the 18th century, late 18th century. So we have to compare the current world with the world that was before the industrial revolution, so that we can actually get a correct amount of comparison of the level of greenhouse gas emission that started just after industrial revolution. Because most of the CO2 that we find here and also the pollutants that we find all across the world have typically been taken place due to the industrial revolution that took place in the UK, then spread it to the Europe and the US, and later in the 1950s all across the world. So that is why we have to understand that due to industrial processes, due to transportation, due to various other myriad causes of climate change, we have the main comparison of the present time with the pre-industrial time. So if we understand that rise of temperature has been around 1.55 degrees Celsius, and even scientists warn that even 0.1% rise is extremely catastrophic for the entire world. And just imagine the amount of rise of temperature that we have witnessed already right now. And according to various experts, we are also going to breach the rise of 2 degrees Celsius by around 2030, 40 and 50. That means that we can actually experience more harsh weather events, more extreme weather events in the coming years. Also, according to the various other sections of the report, here we actually see the composition of the total greenhouse gases. Around 66% of it is carbon dioxide. It is followed by methane, which is a very, very potential global warming gas. It is much more potential than the carbon dioxide, but it is much less short-lived in the atmosphere. That means carbon dioxide, while it can persist for around 100 years, methane is almost in the multiples of 10 years or a decade. Right? Also, when we compare it with the N2O, that is the nitrous oxide, it is also a greenhouse gas. Now, together these gases trap more heat in the Earth's atmosphere, and this is exactly why we have also discussed previously the main root cause of greenhouse gas effect. And obviously, when we actually try to compare all the gases with reference to greenhouse gases, we have taken a standard. That is, we will be comparing the greenhouse gases, the other gases, with the carbon dioxide. That is why we have a term which is known as global warming potential. We have taken the global warming potential of CO2 as one, which is the baseline that we have, and with reference to that, we understand that if we have the baseline as 28 to 34 times of carbon dioxide, that means methane has 28 to 34 times more global warming potential than carbon dioxide. When we compare the same with nitrous oxide, the same is around 273 times. That means the higher number of such gases that we emit into the atmosphere, the higher impacts and adverse impacts of climate change that we will be facing in the future. In this respect, 2020 and 2024 had very, very interesting questions. Pause the screen. Let me know what do you mean by the term of social cost of carbon. And also a very, very interesting question here regarding world location and climate change. So this is how you have to understand the game of UPSC prelims. They try to combine various topics. For example, such term in the news. For example, such locations in the news which are actually witnessing a lot of carbon dioxide emissions and loss of wildlife. So this is exactly how you also have to read the newspaper right now. So let me know the answers in the comment. Now we have to look into the stated reasons in the report which are actually contributing to rising CO2 levels. Firstly, the report has divided the causes into two types, anthropogenic, which is a man-made cause, and the natural variability causes. Firstly, the anthropogenic causes are actually very simple for all of us to understand, because we have been reading these over a period of time, that fossil fuels, deforestation, cement and industrial processes, and shipping and aviation sector all actually emit a lot of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and various other greenhouse gases. Also, we are using a lot of air conditioning, we are actually using a lot of coolants at various industrial processes. These are also causing a lot of greenhouse gases to be emitted into the atmosphere. So this is how we have to understand that the largest share due to which we have rising instances of greenhouse gases is actually coming from fossil fuel combustion. This is due to more number of power plants that we have, and obviously we understand that most of the power plants in India, that is around 50% of the total power that is generated in India, is fueled by coal. Next, the vehicles and the industries. Also, with reference to deforestation, we are actually clearing a lot of forests for tourism, for industry, for agriculture. This is actually leading to the reduction of carbon dioxide in the soil. And also, right now is the time for stubble burning, right, in the northern part of the country, where we have so many instances of fires being ignited at the farmlands in western UP, in Haryana and Punjab. So this is also leading to a lot and lots of methane and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And again, the number is around 10 to 15%. Further, cement and industrial processes, they lead to around 5% emission of greenhouse gases. And at the end of the day, due to the emerging importance of the logistics sector, that is why the shipping and the aviation sector, we also have increasing trend of greenhouse gases within the same. And when we look into the various other natural reasons, which are actually not in our control, but yes, indirectly, we have aggravated or we have worsened these kind of conditions over a period of time since the Industrial Revolution. And here, the main cause here, due to which 2024 was actually the warmest year on record, was due to El Nino events. And you know that El Nino is an adverse weather impact which is having a global effect on the entire local and various ecosystems, which we actually see drier conditions in some parts of the world and heavy rainfall across the coasts of Peru. And this is why we also have had instances of increasing amount of wildfires due to the El Nino event, and also there have been so many studies, so many responses with reference to whether El Nino actually increase the various amount of heat waves on the land and also on the marine ecosystems all across the world. And there have been also various instances of the dryness that follows the El Nino, due to which we have had forest fires. And we cannot also ignore the prolonged impact of deforestation, which is a release of soil carbon, which is known by the process of soil respiration. That is, if we actually have large instances of carbon dioxide emitted from the soil, we also increase the same in the atmosphere, right? Due to which this global greenhouse gas emissions are increasing over a period of time. Now, what are the consequences for India and the world? Firstly, we have to understand the term which is known as extreme weather events. Extreme weather events are those events which are actually caused due to the warming climate. And we actually see that heat waves, cold snaps, intense rainfall, wildfires, right? And various other factors such as cyclones, glacier melt, sea level rise, all of them are caused due to the extreme weather events following climate change. We have to understand one thing, that increased amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it actually not only leads to the increase of the global temperatures, it also leads to the increase in the ocean waters too. And we know that events such as rainfall, cyclone, these actually thrive on warmer waters. So the higher amount of warmer waters, the more instances of rainfall and the cyclones and the erratic monsoons can occur. Also, we have to understand that the increased temperatures all across the world leads to dryness, right, in various parts of the world, due to which we have instances of wildfire and droughts. due to which we are also seeing the various instances of land desertification, due to which the soil is losing its moisture and the soil is increasingly becoming infertile. Over a period of time, we have also seen how human beings have been increasing groundwater outtake. Specifically, this is also seen in India, in the northern part of India, where we have Punjab, Haryana, and with the western UP, and the various other agriculturally prosperous states of the country, wherein farmers are given free electricity, due to which they try to extract all of the water, which is also declining the groundwater level. Now, over that, we are also using a lot of pesticides, chemicals to increase the crop productivity. All of these are also aggravating the event. So, these things are leading to a catastrophic kind of an extreme weather events. On the other hand, when we look at the, say, forests and the mountain, we have the glacial melt, wherein a lot of glaciers are receding right now. That means that these glaciers are going back or climbing top of the mountain, which is not good. Because we actually have seen snow-clad mountains in Himachal, in Kashmir, areas which have been almost 30 to 40 years ago been totally covered with snow. Right now, these snow caps are only present at the top levels, which means that the lower areas of the mountains and the glaciers all have melted away. This means that there is an increasing trend of such events all across the world, as you can see here. In 2024 alone, we have had all of these adverse events all across the world. When we also look into India, the cost of climate change is estimated to be around $87 billion. Just take a moment to realize the importance of this number, $87 billion, which is annual losses due to extreme climate events, such as the increasing amount of lightning events. More so, in recent times, we have seen how floods and heavy rains have caused casualties. Apart from casualties, it also takes a lot of time to reveal the communities, build again the bridges, build again the various homes and the various rescue operations, which also costs a lot of money. Over a period of time, we have also seen heat waves, cyclones, cold wave, gale, hailstorms, snowfall. 10 out of the 15 warmest years were actually observed in the last 15 years itself. These are very important data, guys. Please do note it down somewhere. Also, if we can actually break down India's instances of the, say, increasing amount of adverse weather events, we see that as of 2000, because India became liberalized in 1990s and started attracting a lot of industrial activities and investments, but on to 2010, we gradually have also shifted our infrastructure sector towards more power and transport demand. Gradually in 2024, right now we are not only doing all these things, but also we are having a huge amount of coal dependence and mainly on energy needs because of the growing population, because of the growing industrialization, because of the growing development of the nation. We need to be dependent on fossil fuel for at least some time. It does not mean that we are actually not doing anything on the other side. We are also investing in green energy and so many other incentives that the government is doing. In fact, so that we have to understand that India is accounting for almost 7% of the total carbon dioxide emissions. But here is the most important observation. When we count the per capita emissions, these are actually much more lower than the global average. India is having a per capita global greenhouse gas emission at 2 ton. The global community is having at 4.7 ton. That means that India, with its huge population, still is not having a higher per capita consumption of this kind of greenhouse gases. This means one thing, that the advanced countries such as the US, mainly the western countries here, have historically exploited the climate, and it is only due to their say rapid industrialization and breakneck speed of industrialization and progress that we are seeing this amount of catastrophe right now. So this is exactly what would be the theme in all of the major climate conferences across the world, right? Which is also the main theme of the upcoming COP30, which is slated to take place at Brazil. So this is exactly what we have to understand before this summit, and all of the major governments of the day must be focusing on this particular responsibility among various other factors too. Now, firstly, let us understand what are the various key government initiatives that the government of India has taken to combat climate change. Firstly, we have a very overarching policy-based national action plan on climate change, where we have so many say sub-sectors here. We have the solar sector, we have sustainable housing, we have energy, we have agriculture, we have so many other sectors here under the national action plan, wherein according to those various sectors, we are going to take various other sub-policies. Also, our Prime Minister took the Panchamrit pledge that India would be net zero by 2070 and the various other 4 targets that we have set for ourselves. Now, in the pursuit of those targets, such as achieving 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel power by 2030, we have focused a lot on energy security, and this energy security is coming from the renewable sources, right? And here we have actually focused on so many government schemes, such as the National Green Hydrogen Mission, wherein we are trying to generate hydrogen from greener sources such as solar and wind energy. We are trying to decarbonize our sector. We are trying to actually attract investments, green investments in solar parks, in wind power, and also so many hydropower projects. Also, we have the PM E-Drive scheme, the Perform Achieve Trade, the biofuel policy, that is the E20 policy, and the various other generations of biofuels that India is envisaging. So these are all the things that we are taking to reduce our emissions in the energy sector. With reference to the conservation and the ecosystem protection, we are also having a scheme known as Mishti, which is a scheme to preserve mangroves in the country, Namami Gange to preserve and restore the Gangas, also the Green Credit Scheme, which is actually a kind of a loan facility to be given by the banks to those projects which are green and sustainable. We also have Ek Peड़ Maa Ke Naam and such awareness campaigns to actually reflect upon the main vision of afforestation. Next, we also have agricultural, industrial, urbanization, and so many other sectors wherein the government is doing a lot of effort to actually decarbonize the sectors. For example, we have the National Clean Air Program. We have the PM Kusum, which is actually the scheme to give farmers solar-powered water pumps so that they rely less on the electricity, which is given free of cost to the government. Next, we have the Amrut scheme, which is a method to modernize Indian cities on a sustainable scale. We have micro irrigation projects. Next, R&D and so many other research and intentions that we have to decarbonize the sector. So in this also, we have seen how various global efforts such as the Paris Climate Deal, the various aspects of Montreal Protocol, even Kyoto Protocol, which is not existing right now, but in fact, it is known as one of the few instances of global cooperation in climate change. Alongside the same, we also can see how India have gone on to achieve so many things. For example, we have reduced our greenhouse gas intensity per unit of GDP by 36%. We also have increased our installed electricity capacity for non-fossil fuel to the tune of 45%. So we have the target of 500 gigawatt by 2030. Next, we have also increased the forest and tree area to around 25% of the total land area, which are actually very, very impressive marks. Now we have to understand what we India have to do ahead. Firstly, we have to be very vocal at the various climate conferences. We have to ask for more funds. And in this, China is also with us. China also supports us. We also support China in our mutual climate goals. Firstly, we need to ensure this. Secondly, we need to also progress towards Mission Life, which stands for Lifestyle for Environment, which is actually a message given by our Prime Minister to adopt our own daily lifestyles in such a way which is extremely sustainable and friendly for the environment. Next, we also need to understand that climate change is a long drawn process and combating it also will be very long and be very painful. So this is how a global convergence on various policies must be reached. And this is how we have come to the end of this topic. We have a practice question for all of you. You can let me know what is the answer. A brief version of it maybe in the comments below. Now we'll be moving on to the next one. The Sri Lankan Prime Minister was on a 3-day visit to India, and we have had seen so many important diplomatic announcements by the two countries. So this is exactly what we are trying to achieve in this discussion, because we have India and its neighborhood relations. So anything that pertains to such neighborhood relations, improvement or deterioration, is important for us to follow. So here we have good news from the two countries, where we recently saw the instance of our Sri Lankan Prime Minister meeting our own Prime Minister. So wherein we actually had the message from our Prime Minister that Sri Lanka and India cooperates on a variety of topics. Recently, we have cooperated on education, women empowerment, innovation, development cooperation, and welfare of our fishermen. So as close neighbors, according to our Prime Minister, our cooperation holds immense importance for the prosperity of our two people and also for the shared region. Now, why am I reading out these things? Because guys, these are excellent introductions or conclusions which you can ready-made right now for your mains answers. Because such statements, especially given by our Prime Ministers, are very crucial for these kind of questions and answers that you can address. Secondly, it is extremely easy for all of us to remember and not think before writing an introduction, which is actually the time which is wasted by a lot of aspirants by just thinking what to write in the intro and the conclusion. Okay, now what are the key themes discussed that we have just seen? Education and skill development, women empowerment, technology, innovation, development cooperation, and welfare of fishermen. Now the main thing here which was actually seen from this meeting was actually her visit to various educational institutions. And right now we have a particular mission known as the Delhi-Colombo Education Bridge, wherein she visited our IITs and even a PM Shri school at Delhi. So she visited a Delhi government school and IIT Delhi to actually get various partnerships for India and Sri Lanka. So herein we have this education bridge, and within the same we have exchange and learning of students and teachers between the two countries. We will also cooperate on skill and vocational training, sustainable schools, so that schools in Sri Lanka is actually built with proper sustainable power sources such as solar energy, and digital learning collaboration, where India is actually a very big leader in digital sphere, especially due to educational capabilities and leadership. So this is how the two countries have collaborated for this educational purposes. But right now we have to understand why good relations matters a lot between these two countries, especially when we talk about India. Sri Lanka is actually our one of the most important partners when we think about our neighborhood first policy. Neighborhood first policy is a very famous policy which is a diplomatic stance of India to give favorable instances to our neighbors, have good relations with them, help in distress, seek assistance, and also to help with the diaspora of Indians in those countries. So this is very significant because a lot of Indians, mainly from the Tamil community, they live in Sri Lanka due to various cultural and also tourism and various work purposes. Next, Sri Lanka is extremely important for India's Mahasagar, which is an overarching Indian Ocean security architecture, and also kind of an economic link and trade link and investment link with the countries situated in the Indian Ocean region. And Sri Lanka, being the closest country, is obviously very important. Next, we know that Sri Lanka is actually a cultural cousin of India, wherein we have had a shared history of more than 2500 years. Now anyone in the comments tell me, who was that emperor who sent his son to Sri Lanka to promote Buddhism? It is a very easy question. You let me know what is the answer. Also, if you can understand, for Sri Lanka, India is an economic lifeline. That means that India is Sri Lanka's biggest trade partner. Bilateral trade crossed $5.8 billion in 24-25 financial year. Next, India is also the largest contributor of FDI of around $2.56 billion in 2024. Also, PhonePe was recently launched in Sri Lanka, wherein you can use your QR codes in Sri Lanka for some selected transactions. Also, UPI was launched in February 2024. That means India is actually a very major economic lifeline. Next, Sri Lanka also views India as a very resourceful country due to its huge geographical extent and its huge trade, investment and so many other links, due to its also military training and so many other instances. Sri Lanka finds it very convenient to actually take assistance, to have good relations with India. Also, we have to understand that this is a cultural and demographic reality for Sri Lanka also, because of the sheer amount of diaspora that is residing in either of the nations. Also, if you can understand that Sri Lanka is actually a very major trans-Pacific shipping route, where whether it is from the, say, Dubai region, whether it is from the Mediterranean region, right, we have so many major trading routes which actually pass nearby Colombo in Sri Lanka. And this is exactly why India is also very concerned regarding Sri Lanka and the various other instances such as the rising influence of China in the region. So let us also understand what are the other pillars of cooperation. For example, with reference to diplomatic ties, we have supported India's inclusion in the BRICS membership. Also, Sri Lanka is supporting India's stance for being included as United Nations Security Council non-permanent member for the 2028-29 terms. Next, on the maritime security domain, we have so many exercises. For example, the SNILEX, the Milan exercise, the joint army exercise such as Mitra Shakti. So Sri Lanka actually cooperates a lot in these particular exercises. Also, we extend port assistance to Sri Lanka, for example, with reference to their vessels or any of their military and naval equipments. We give them port assistance at our own ports. Sri Lankan government also gives the same to India. Now, when we talk about the energy security aspect, both of the countries have agreed to have inter-grid connectivity of electricity, multi-purpose petroleum pipeline, and also a power project at Sampur, which is actually under construction right now. Next, when we talk about economics and the various economic relations between the two countries, we have actually discussed about the amount of bilateral trade and the foreign direct investment that India actually has with Sri Lanka. And obviously, humanitarian and cultural reasons are there. For example, during the COVID-19, we supplied a lot of vaccines to Sri Lanka to actually help them cope up with the pandemic. Next, in India, we also have the Buddhist circuit and the Ramayana trail, which also includes various parts of Sri Lanka to promote the regional tourism aspect. So despite we have so many other agreements also that we have signed, so this is signaling that India and Sri Lanka are actually cooperating on a big level. But there are some challenges. Firstly, we have the Chinese influence increasing in Sri Lanka. For example, this Hambantota port, as you can see here, this has been taken over by Chinese debt organizations because Sri Lanka, back in history, they actually took some loans or some debt by China. And this is the Chinese policy that if you want to take over some countries and their strategic resources, you have to give them loans, so many loans, so much loans in a huge amount so that they cannot pay you back. And when they do not pay you back, you take their resources. If you see, these are the various Chinese projects which are undergoing in Sri Lanka. And this is actually taken, this is actually an infographic which has been taken by Chinese agencies, and you can actually understand that Chinese investments have been more than the Indian investments in the region despite India being closer to Sri Lanka, right? Also, we have to understand that there have been so many secret visits by Chinese research vehicles. Now, these are research vehicles which actually function the work of spies. And also, in recent times, we have seen how Chinese President Xi has made the new Prime Minister in Sri Lanka. And also, we have also various Chinese companies which seek the support of Sri Lankan government for various investments. So this is exactly how we have to understand the Chinese angle. Next, the troubling waters of the Kachativu Island. Now, this Kachativu Island actually belonged to the Raja of Ramnad estate. Now, during the British rule, both India and Sri Lanka actually claimed ownership over the Kachativu Island, as you can see here, which is just right to the maritime boundary of between India and Sri Lanka. Now, when we actually have seen the agreement between the Indira Gandhi government and Sri Lankan government then, they signed in 1974 a treaty which recognized Sri Lanka's sovereignty over the Kachativu island. But right now, we have had so many controversies, especially with reference to fishermen facing issues at this particular island. But one of the most important conditions would be that Indian fishermen could actually also fish near the island. But in recent times, we have had so many instances of clashes between the Sri Lankan and the Indian fishermen, even leading to a loss of so many lives of Indian fishermen and also Sri Lankan fishermen. Now, this was generally due to loss of access to fishing grounds and also due to climate change. The fishing stock in their region is decreasing, due to which we are seeing this kind of conflicts. Also recently, the newly elected Sri Lankan Prime Minister visited Kachativu Island and vowed to protect the sovereignty. So this means that this, apart from being a local political issue, from actually the state of Tamil Nadu also, this has right now also been turned into a major national issue of Sri Lanka. So this means that there are some issues to be sorted out on the island side too. Also, when we discuss the various other challenges, we have economic dependence of Sri Lanka on India, right? Also, if you can understand that Sri Lanka has more economic dependence actually on China, on various market borrowings, on various international institutions such as Asian Development Bank. Next, we also have the Tamil ethnic issue. The Tamil community in Sri Lanka have had faced persecution over a lot of periods of time, and due to which the state politics of Tamil Nadu and the national treatment of Tamils in Sri Lanka has always been an issue. Lastly, Sri Lanka has been seen balancing between India and China because both India and China want a control over the Indo-Pacific waters. So this is also an issue that Sri Lanka is actually facing. Imagine that you are having two friends. Now both of the friends are enemies of each other. Now you are stuck in the middle. What to do? Right? This is actually the situation which Sri Lanka is also in. Also, if you can understand the various ethnic tensions which go on, there are various local communities in Sri Lanka which allege that the Tamil Hindus and their temples and their practices are being changed according to their own, the Sri Lankan own culture. So this is also some religious tensions that we are seeing. So the only way forward between India and Sri Lanka to sort out these tensions and issues would be very important statements coming from the leaders of the nation. So firstly, Sri Lankan Prime Minister visited our country. Then our Prime Minister also have given various positive statements. Now before that, when Sri Lankan President was actually chosen, right, and the person came to the power, Disayanka, who is actually the Sri Lankan President, he told that Sri Lanka won't allow use of Sri Lankan soil to target India. So this is actually a very positive statement coming from a president of a country which is our neighborhood country. That means that any kind of external Chinese influence or various other factors won't be tolerated under his regime. So that is why there must be constructive engagement on the various other issues too. So firstly, we have to understand that India's 5S approach with Sri Lanka is extremely crucial. That is, we must be treating the country Samvad, Sahyog, Shanti, and that is when we will achieve prosperity via Samriddhi. And this is how we have to leverage our soft power, that is the people to people connect. If you can understand that Sri Lanka actually also celebrates Diwali. So soon they will also celebrate Diwali. Apart from that, we have also so many other festivals which are being celebrated in Tamil Nadu too, right? Such as Pongal and various similar cultural practices. So we have people to people connect. We have cultural connect over a period of time. So let us use them. Also, regional and multilateral cooperation is extremely important between two countries. Sri Lanka, India are parts of SAARC, Indian Ocean Rim Association and BIMSTEC. So we need to strengthen the cooperation in our maritime security, trade and cultural connect. Also, with reference to energy connectivity and security, we actually need to increase a lot of investments, increase more FDI from India and complete the project so that Chinese projects and Chinese investments do not see the light of the day. And obviously, when we talk about economic integration, we can actually elevate the partnership between India and Sri Lanka to the level of economic technical cooperation. So this is exactly how this topic has concluded, and now let us answer this question in the comments. Now we will be moving on to simplified articles. Guys, digital arrests have been increasing in the country. We have seen so many instances of the same. Right now, Supreme Court is also concerned, because right now there have been instances in this particular case where the scammer is using Supreme Court's symbols and various symbologies to resemble Supreme Court and various CBI, IB officials and extort huge sums of money specifically from elderly people. And this is exactly how we need to be very serious about the emerging instances of cybercrime, which is a topic of GS3. Now, when we talk about digital arrest, we generally have a person, a scammer, who is calling you via a normal phone call, or mainly which happens is actually via a video call over WhatsApp. So you can generally see maybe a fake person which is sitting with the attire of a CBI officer. So all the name and tag and the symbol and the cap and everything will be there. The uniform will be there. It will, completely resemble the CBI organization. And they will tell that, okay, you have done some transactions, your parcel has been found at some airport or some customs, you have to now clear it, otherwise you will be facing a penalty and fine and even imprisonment. So these are the various stories that that person will be telling you. And in that instance, you have to be very aware. And now if you are not aware, you can fall trap and pay the person money for nothing, right? So this is exactly what is happening to mainly people who are not aware of the digital tools, who are not aware exactly how the world operates properly. So this is exactly the advantage that the scammers are using. So they tell that you are under digital arrest, which is totally having no legal basis in the country. The police cannot arrest you digitally, that is over WhatsApp, over video call. To arrest someone, the police always needs a warrant. And in such digital arrests, there are no warrants, and this digital medium is in any ways not a legal arrest at all. So this is exactly how impersonation of officials took place, and this is exactly what the Supreme Court is concerned with, specifically when these scammers are targeting the elderly. So what happened is a senior citizen couple from Ambala, they were defrauded of around 1 crore by digital scammers, and they actually resembled the various the CBI and the IB officers, and they came up with forged orders, judgments of Supreme Court, the Bombay High Court and even the Enforcement Department, right? So with reference to such orders which have been shared on WhatsApp, this couple become afraid, frightened, and they gave huge sums of money to the scammers, right? And this is exactly what the Supreme Court is concerned, that such activities of forging documents, impersonating officers erode the very basic public trust in such institutions. And the Supreme Court further tells that such direct copying or say forging is actually an insult and assault on the dignity and majesty of the institution of Supreme Court. So this is how they have taken now very seriously, because over a period of time, as you can understand, the rising instances of digital arrests are seen. Also, the defrauded amounts are also seen over a period of time, that they are increasing. But yeah, in 2025, since the year has not concluded, and also the numbers seem that they are actually very low. That means the government is actually doing some positive efforts to reduce the number of digital arrests. Now, mainly people are afraid and they panic in such conditions, right? They also have a lack of legal awareness that you cannot arrest someone digitally. That is not legally permissible in the country. Also, there are various social stigma. Then AI can be used to manipulate. For example, say you can create a deep fake video of say the serving Supreme Court judge and present it on a video call to a person. So this is how you can also use AI for the same. Also, many people are in isolation. They are busy on social media. They do not interact with the outside world. They do not know what is going on. So they also feel prey to this. And at the end of the day, there are people in the country who are not digitally literate, right? Who are not exactly very well conversant to use smartphones, laptops and digital techniques. So this is exactly why such scams are happening. Apart from this, we also have various other kinds of categories of scams, such as phishing, right? Such as sending lots of emails which are totally fake from Amazon or Flipkart, for example. Also, lottery and price scams. Romantic scams are also happening due to dating app manipulations, where you can actually be matched with a person. They can invite you to a restaurant and bar, and at the end of the day you will see that the person will be leaving for toilet or some other reason, with you have to pay the bill at the restaurant, which can run into thousands of rupees, guys. Okay, so be very careful in this. We also have job related scams, investment schemes, right, which are scams. We have the online, the e-commerce scams going on, the charity scams, the money transfer scams, the credit card scams are there. So these are all the scams which are actually the new face of cybercrime in India. And all of the crimes happen due to such reasons. So this is why we have to actually be very, very aware. Now, that is why the government, as you can see, has reduced the instances of crimes from 2024 to 2025. That means that we are actually taking a lot of measures. Firstly, we have the National Cyber Security Policy, which is an overarching policy to dictate how the cyber crimes should be dealt with. Next, we have the Computer Emergency Response Team for very, very serious cyber attacks, which actually look into the various cyber attacks and how to combat, where the data is, and also to take proper policy measures. We also have Cyber Surakshit Bharat initiative to actually make people aware of the various scams and scandals. Also, we have the Botnet Cleaning Center, which is a Cyber Swachhta Kendra, which is actually looking at cleansing your smartphone of the various malicious malware and the virus that can be present. So if you want to be assured, you can download this application right now and check whether there are actually any kind of malware or viruses in your phone right now. Also, the National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center has been set up to actually identify right now that apart from physical infrastructure such as bridges, such as schools, such as say airports, we also have a digital infrastructure which cannot be seen and be touched. These are actually intangible infrastructure which are only existing on the digital parameters. So this is exactly why this institution has been set up to protect it. Also, we have the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 to safeguard personal data of citizens. Next, we have the I4C, Indian Cyber Coordination Center, and a national portal for the same, which is actually also looking at various digital arrests and the scams and scandals to actually have a coordination between the center and the various state governments. At the end of the day, we also have a citizen financial fraud reporting and management system, which is the helpline number, as you can see here, which you can actually call to report such instances. Now, there are two questions from 2017 and 2020. Pause the screen and let me know what is the answer in the comments. Now guys, we have a very important and interesting study which was recently published in the Nature magazine regarding the rotavirus vaccine. Now this is extremely important for our prelims, topic of science, and also topic of health in our GS2. Now we have to understand that a recent study which goes by the name of Impact of the Indigenous Rotavirus Vaccine in the Universal Immunization Program in India between 2016 and 2020 was conducted by a group of researchers. Now what they looked into the various vaccines which are given under the Universal Immunization Program that actually gives you free of cost vaccines of this amounts of diseases, as you can see. So we have hepatitis B, the BCG, the oral polio vaccine, and so on. Between this, we actually have the rotavirus vaccine, which actually is a vaccine to combat the diarrhea in infants and specifically children who are below 5 years of age. Now this is actually caused, such kind of diarrhea is actually caused by double-stranded RNA virus, right? And this viruses target your small intestine. And this virus is also spread via the fecal route, via the human waste remains, right? And also the main disease which is caused due to this is acute gastroenteritis. So this is where you have diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration, and etc. Now for your information, you have to understand that this rota vaccine was actually developed indigenously in India, which is which was actually possible via a public-private partnership between the Government of India, which is via the Department of Biotechnology, between a private institute or private company, the Bharat Biotech, and also the US National Institutes of Health. We also have the Stanford University participating along with the Bill and Melinda Gates too. Now, this kind of study was done at across around 31 hospitals in 9 states between 16 to 2020. So this was actually just after the introduction of rotavirus vaccine. So the researchers compared the various facts before and after the introduction of the vaccine in 2016, right? So this study tells that the vaccine effectiveness have increased by 54%. So immediately we have to understand that the public health impact of the same would be that the poorer households generally would have less out of pocket expenditure. That means such vaccines are having higher accuracy and lesser number of children will be suffering right now, so their parents will have lesser amount of money to spend on such medical emergencies, because it is told that in India you are just a hospital bill away from poverty, and such instances specifically involving children involve a lot of money. So such vaccinations and its effectiveness are very, very important. Also, hospitalization due to rotavirus vaccine have significantly declined, because you understand that whenever we take some vaccine shots, our immunity system actually fights with the same also, and in that duration some children do fall sick and they had to be hospitalized. But after the introduction of the rotavirus vaccine and over a period of time, we have seen that the numbers have been declining. Next, when we talk about the sustained impact or say the consistency across the states, so the research also concluded that this kind of vaccine has actually had a positive impact. So this is all good for the economic impact of the various state governments also, because such hospitalization costs and so many other instances due to this gastroenteritis disease would have had a huge economic impact. But as of now, it is actually good for the families who are coming from the vulnerable sections of the population. Also, on the other hand, it is promoting our own indigenous brand of vaccine, which is a very, very big moment and a matter of pride for our scientific community too. So now we'll be moving on to the next one. Guys, Supreme Court has recently recommended a panel, that is a committee for equal opportunity for transgender persons in the country. Now this is a very important step by the Supreme Court to secure a panel, a committee recommendation for a vulnerable section of the population, which are the transgender section of our country. So this becomes extremely important for GS2, wherein the story starts with Jane Kaushik. She was a teacher who was denied to get employment at a UP and a Gujarat school, after which she became very determined to actually become a social activist and fight her and lakhs of other transgenders persons and their rights at the judiciary. So she had a very, very big victory recently, because the Supreme Court on Friday recently set up a committee of former Justice Asha Menon to recommend the various policies that we can take to make the various opportunities equal for the transgender persons, and also in the areas of employment and education, what all that the government needs to do, and also to find out various implementation challenges. Because when we talk about the various issues faced by the community, firstly, as we can see, the very basic thing is giving the transgender category status. If you see, only some few selected states, right, such as Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, West Bengal and Maharashtra, they have the category of transgender category. The rest of the other parts of our entire country do not have any provision for the same. Also, under the 2020 scheme, right, there is a national portal for transgender person, right. Now, if you can understand, nearly 85% of transgender persons application for ID cards are pending. That means already they face a lot of poverty, a lot of backwardness. Next, they are facing social stigma, right, already from the society. Next, this implementation challenges of the various government schemes and policies for them are not taking place due to bureaucratic apathy. So all of these reasons are leading to the deteriorating amount of transgender rights. Now, firstly, let us be aware that there are existing legal and constitutional safeguards for them. Firstly, according to Article 14, they have the right to equality, because in the Constitution it is mentioned that all persons are actually entitled to this right. Right? Next, we have Article 15 and 16, which actually typically prohibit discrimination on the grounds of sex, includes gender identity. Also, Article 21 gives you the right to live with dignity, which includes their own right to live with dignity too. And Article 142 also empowers the Supreme Court of our country to deliver instant justice with reference to the various injustices that the community faces and so on. The Supreme Court can take proactive steps to even frame a law and to even make sure that the order is binding on the government. So this is exactly how earlier also in 2014 we had a Supreme Court case which is by the name of Nalsa versus Union of India. Now, for the first time in the country, third gender was recognized as a category. Just imagine, in 2014 it was recognized. Also, Supreme Court recognized that since transgenders belong to socially and educationally backward classes, they are also liable for reservations. And here, the role of the government becomes extremely important, mainly the district, the state, and at times the central government too. That is why, in 2019, the central government came up with an act, the Transgender Protection of Right Act of 2019. So this act is having so many protections. For example, with reference to any discrimination that is prohibited, right, abuse that is prohibited, financial support for transgender students from class 9 to post-graduation is given, national portal for transgender person, as we have seen here. Right, this portal was launched in 2020, but still many transgender persons are not getting their ID cards. Apart from this, there are so many other features also. But the main thing is that this act is not functioning properly. So this is why the Supreme Court told that there must be an equal opportunity policy, for which a panel has been set up. The timeline is 6 months to give the various recommendations, right? It is mainly to highlight the various lacuna or the issues in the Transgender Right Act, and we have to suggest the measures that must be taken to improve the act. And also the Supreme Court ruling told the committee that there are states such as Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Delhi. Except these states, right, no other state has brought any rules on the lines of the 2020 rules, which was brought after the 2019 Act. So many states are actually still yet to implement the same. Next, Supreme Court also ordered that there must be transgender welfare boards within 3 months in all UT and the states. There must be transgender protection cells under the DM and the DGP within 3 months. Okay, the state must be appointing the compliant officers in all establishments, specifically in private and public companies, immediately right now. Also, we must be designating an appellate authority in each state within 3 months. Within 3 months again, we have to create a national toll-free helpline for all of the transgender persons, and this is the responsibility of the union government. So mind it that the Supreme Court has reprimanded everyone for the weak implementation of this particular act. Now we'll be moving on to the next one. According to various experts, guys, Agentic AI is a new opportunity for India. Let us understand why. Because for general science, for awareness in the fields of information technology, we need to know what the recent terms which are going on. Now, to understand Agentic AI, imagine a simple example. Imagine that you have an AC in your room which is AI enabled, which means that it can sense the temperature outside. For example, if the temperature outside your room is increasing, that means the AC needs to be cooling down, right? So this is on purpose that AI can do right now. It can sense the degree outside and it can actually automatically adjust the temperature in your room. But Agentic AI goes beyond that. Agentic AI will not only be lowering the temperature to make you feel comfortable. To make you feel comfortable, it will be optimizing the temperature so that your electricity bills actually do not increase substantially, right? Also, according to the weather forecast, it will be changing the various modes. Also, the Agentic AI would be knowing your schedule. would be knowing how much you are actually present in the room, doing what kind of activity it can sense. It can also try to calibrate on the same levels. Also, based on the various other lightnings, for example, say light or TV in your room, it can also try to optimize the power. So you can actually understand that agentic AI is going beyond traditional AI. Traditional AI role was actually reactive. That means the temperature outside was high, and that's why the AI reacted by lowering the temperature in your room. But agentic is proactive. That means it is not only doing that purpose, it is also taking responsibilities of so many other things. It is continuously learning from your environment, right? It is also multi-agent. It is having so many other appliances linked. It is having so many contexts to understand for your day-to-day lives, and also for various other industries. For example, say in customer care support, in healthcare operations and patients, and also sales automations, human resources, marketing campaign. Agentic AI has unlimited potential to actually continuously learn the new things, adapt, and give you proper responses and give you a sense of automation in your life. So this is actually will be requiring minimal supervision, because the data and all the user segments they can itself try to generate, and they can also try to take decisions. They can also negotiate on your behalf if you are a marketing person, or if it is used for various other purposes. So this is actually, we have to understand, is a new version of AI right now. So this is why India, despite having a very vast amount of digital public infrastructure such as UPI, such as open network for digital commerce and various other purposes, right? We have innovation right now. And this is exactly what we have to understand, that India is having a kind of an opportunity in this race if we want to invest money right now in AI. So this can help us to achieve the next level of agentic AI. So we can have an automatic data analysis, right? We can actually have a better productivity in the Indian economy, right? Also the healthcare, the agricultural fields, the national security, all of these things can be made better because of the better automated decision making and the negotiating factor of such AI applications. Also, on the other hand, we know that with every technology, there are issues. The first liability is actually about tool misuse or prompt injection. For example, say if there is one hacker who wants to corrupt the agentic AI of a particular company's marketing campaign, which uses this AI machine. So what this hacker can do, it can feed in some incorrect prompts so that entire system can crash. Also, the same hacker can do memory poisoning by deleting some of the memory signals by actually hacking into the AI system. It can also run so many applications at once so that the computer cannot handle and it can crash, right? So that is known as resource overload. Then sometimes it can also happen that if you give too much false information into AI systems, it can also give you false information and run false tasks, right? And at the end of the day, the data privacy concerns are always there, correct? So this is exactly why we need to actually understand the importance of AI ethics. AI ethics means that we have to keep human beings at the core. We should not let machines do all the work and all the work that devoids human beings of humanity. Also, we must be having human control over proper AI systems so that they do not become too autonomous. Privacy, security, and safety must be by design. AI systems must be accountable with reference to their source codes or their programming languages. There must be minimum amount of bias in such AI applications, and obviously the ethical use must be done by the companies and the government sector and the citizens of the country. So that is where we now will be moving on to the last article. Guys, the last article today will be having 3 important news, which are all having one important similarity, which is the places in news section. So in all those contexts, as you can see, these are all international events. That is why we have tried to link it with the IR part, but more so for prelims importance. Because firstly, when we look at Venezuela being in the news, it is due to US military deployment in the Caribbean region. Also, there have been so many instances in the past where the Donald Trump administration has been totally against the ruling Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. So these two leaders have been in conflict with each other, with US actually letting so many jets flying over Caribbean. And this is exactly how we have to understand the true motive of the Trump administration is to control Venezuela's massive petroleum reserves. As you can see, in the entire world, Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, right? So this is more than the 5 times of the United States, even higher than Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Canada. But when you see the total exports by Venezuela, it is much lesser than the rest of the world. So this is exactly what the US is thinking, that we can tap in the untapped resources of Venezuela. For a mapping purpose, it is extremely important to know the Venezuelan map. It is actually located towards the northern part of Latin American countries. It is surrounded by Guyana, Colombia, and Brazil to the south, right? It's also having the Trinidad and Tobago Islands on the northern side. Next, when we go to the next one, it is about the Egyptian Suez Canal Economic Zone that the Egyptian foreign minister has invited India to join. Now, this is actually a zone, as you can see here. This is the Suez Canal, which is entirely in Egypt, right? You have to understand that Suez Canal is entirely in Egypt, and in between there are some stretches, as you can see in yellow, which are the zones, which are the special economic zones, wherein private companies of China and Russia has been invited to invest. And these companies will get special incentives, tax breaks, almost like our own special economic zones. But it is having more potential because of the ease of access towards the Mediterranean Sea and also towards the Red Sea and the rest of the world. So it can actually place so many companies on the market potential of more than 2 billion people of Africa, South America, Europe, and the Arabian countries. So it will be looked into whether India will be joining or not. But India has a strategic interest, because actually we have to understand that Suez Canal is that section of the world where a lot of global oil shipments pass through. And finally, we have the Bering Strait, wherein we are actually having a theory right now to have a Putin-Trump rail tunnel between the Bering Strait. Now, the Bering Strait is separating the Chukchi Peninsula from the Seaward Peninsula in the US and Russia, right? And the width is around 82 kilometers, wherein we also can see the international date line passing through this region, correct? Now, this particular Bering Strait is having a very historical value, because it was thought that earlier the entire earth was frozen under the ice age. But when the ice ages actually melted and went away, right, the natural bridge which was linking between the Asia and the North American continent also disappeared. And this is exactly why many species, if you can find in the entire North and South America, are totally different from the Asian and the rest of the world animals and flora and fauna. So this is actually what we know as a land bridge theory too. And at the end of the day, this is the tunnel that can cost around $8 billion in total, where these two countries are trying to agree to the same. So this was all which I wanted to discuss with you all today. You can attempt this 2024 PYQs to understand why we exactly discuss the places in news, because there have been so many countries and the reason for them being in the news. So that's all. You attempt the question in the comments below. Let me know what is the answer. I thank you all for being a very patient audience. Happy Diwali to all of you again. Do attempt the quiz which is following up. We'll meet again. All the best and best of luck. Till then, thank you.